science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Zentastic salutations to all of our cognonauts out there. This is the show Exofathom, where we take time to contemplate all kinds of fun out there things. My name is Ayla. I'll be your host tonight, and we're going to be talking about Inch Time Foot Gem, which is a Zen Koan. But first, I will introduce my lovely co-hosts. As per usual, there's Nick and Mike. How are you guys doing tonight?
Buenas noches.
I'm hanging in there as usual. You know how that goes.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah,
How are you doing?
Well, as I was explaining off air, I took quite a tumble on my evening run today. So, hanging in there, trying to hang in there.
At least you made it here.
I did. And I'm really excited I made it because we have a great show for you guys tonight. It's Friday. It's the first week back in the new year, I guess. So let's dive into it. This is a Zen Koan, and it's called Inch Time Foot Gem. And of course, the title immediately caught my eye, and it's a short one. And here it goes. A lord asked Ta Koan, a Zen teacher, to suggest how he might pass the time. He felt his days very long, attending his office and sitting stiffly to receive the homage of others. Ta Koan wrote 8 Chinese characters and gave them to the man. Not twice this day. Inch time foot gem. This day will not come again. Each minute is worth a priceless gem. And so that's it. And, at first it's a little self-explanatory, but then when you start diving into it, there's some really cool things happening here. So first, Nick and Mike, any reactions or thoughts?
Where's the rest of it?
Inch time foot gem. That's going to be my response to everything now. Mike, any initial reactions?
I mean, it makes sense. It's just that phrasing, inch time foot gem.
Yeah.
It's a little silly, but I think I get it.
Right.
The day doesn't repeat, everything just kind of goes a little bit forward.
Yeah.
You can appreciate each little thing as a precious little gem.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I mean, I definitely paused when I first read it, and I thought myself, inch time foot gem. And I thought, because I remember seeing the title, it was in this index of other koans, and I was like, oh, that should be interesting. And then I read it, and I was like, I still don't know what that means.
It's just difficult to say, too.
It is.
Time foot gem.
Yeah. I kind of want a tattoo of this. But, I do like the different components of it. So, for example, the inch time foot gem thing, I wondered if it was supposed to be something like inch time, inch foot, inch gem. That was where I first went with it, which isn't really correct. But I was just thinking about like inching time, inching your foot, the idea of going slowly.
Yeah.
I kind of also see the maybe the more basic understanding of it, which is like if you're able to measure time in an inch, a foot of it would be priceless.
Yes. And that's a good way to think about it too, for sure. And then I started thinking too, like, gem, why are we talking about gems? And I was thinking about who this was intended for, because it's for a lord who is such a jerk. He's asking this Zen teacher, how do I spend my time? Because my days are so long, because people are coming to honor me. And I just wondered, like, if I reread the answer, is there some sass to it? Or is it just true wisdom?
Well, I think with all of the cones, the master tends to have a little bit of attitude with them. Um, that seems to be kind of a delivery method for the wisdom in itself, actually, because maybe it's a cultural thing. But yeah, there's like this kind of lace of snark that
Yeah.
is poignant because the master would be a bit snarky about somebody being so ridiculous.
I
And
would think so.
I could kind of see it too, being like the Socrates "I know nothing" thing, just like a
Mm.
thing to throw away to certain people that came asking such questions, and yeah, the not twice this day. That's also interesting. Like it's almost like someone's not like the Lord isn't present in the moment, and so it has to like he sees every person as the same, and so
Mhm.
that's why it feels so long instead of appreciating each individual person or each inch as their own gem.
Mhm.
It also kind of is like a reminder that yes, perhaps today you're spending your entire day being honored, but there may come a day in which that never happens again. And
Mm.
it's best to take in the day, inch by inch.
Mhm. Yeah, oh, definitely. And do you think there's any significance to the order of presentation when it comes to time, foot, and gem? Like gem is last. He starts with like I don't know, because I was just taking it in so
Yeah,
many different
I,
directions.
I'm being very literal. I just see it as an inch of time. If you could measure a moment in time with an inch, a foot of it would be priceless, a gem.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of just the way I see it. But I'm sure, I mean, obviously it's structured in a way for you to interpret it many different ways.
Yeah.
Like an SAT question. Inches to
Mhm.
foot as time is to a gem.
Right. Yeah.
God, those are the worst.
Yeah.
Those are so hard. There were some of those questions that I would read and it would I would kind of zone out because I'd be like, that is an interesting question.
You
Because
kind
I
of
mean,
tone
right?
out.
Like, what? Oh,
Mm. All right,
mm,
no, okay, that was bad. I'll put myself on mute now.
no, thank you. Moving on. No, but I do think it's good that we're talking about the time aspect, and he's referring to the value of time. So you're talking about the inch of time and a foot of gems. Um, and so just to kind of think about that, because this guy, this Lord, he it's not that he's bored. I think it's like he's referring to the mundane. Like if his days felt long, it's probably because it was the same thing every day. And I know you guys can relate to this because we're all living in like perpetual groundhog day. But do you ever think in moments where things feel like it's kind of boring or repetitive, do you think if you were to stop and reflect on the value of time, that might help?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to get bored if you realize that nothing is certain and you know you're not guaranteed any more time than you already currently have every second. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
things can happen. Like things. Yeah, I mean, like, and I think that that's kind of one of the other underlying themes is like don't don't be as don't be so arrogant with your understanding of what you think reality is as to be bored about some monotonous day you might experience, because I guarantee you, if something were to happen and you're floating in the afterlife looking back, you would have been like, well, that was actually one of my favorite days. Or that was one of the days I felt the most about something,
Mhm.
because I think even recognizing monotony can distinguish it from other things.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
can also see the other side though, where like you're so accustomed to this sort of day that even when you reflect back on the time in that day, you can't. You, it just makes everything feel longer, like the kid waiting for the bell to ring at the end of school or something like that. So
Mhm.
I can kind of see it like that, where you're so locked into it. But I think you're right. Like after a certain point, you might look back at it in a different situation where you're bored and like I really miss my former boredom. I wish I
Mhm.
had that boredom back.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's good to ask yourself sometimes, like, what are you waiting for,
Mhm.
or what are you anticipating? If you're bored right now, it means that you're trying to get on to other things, perhaps, or you're unhappy with the thing at hand. But really, where's the what's the thing that you want to lily pad to next that's gonna cure that boredom, or is it just gonna follow you?
Right. Right. And I think that's a really good point because in so many ways we attribute boredom to like having nothing to do when in so many ways it's an internal experience.
Mhm.
People can become bored of anything.
Right.
And I think it's interesting too because they start out one, character development is a big thing when you're telling stories. And so, it wasn't a poor man. It wasn't um, I don't know, a loner or a hermit. It was a lord, somebody who because most of us are not lords. We're not really wealthy. So when we read about one, we probably might, or at least myself, I get a little skewed, like this guy, and so I wonder if that was purposeful in the sense that like it was supposed to be a character that you would feel a little snarky towards because here's a guy that just expects every day to be the same. I mean, right? Because like if you are bored of your daily routine, that means that on some level you also believe that you're going to live that same day forever. That's why it's so boring. And I thought that was kind of an interesting distinction to make because like you're saying, if we do have the like in some ways the luxury to ponder our boredom, isn't that something, you know, valuable in of itself? And also to question like our own associations with this ungrateful character.
Well, and you would think too that if the character is a lord, then he probably has the resources to unbore himself, and yet
True.
still has found himself bored, which is another commentary on something you just mentioned a minute ago with the concept that it is it's not the act of not having anything to do. It's about some sort of dissatisfaction you have within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or like even like maybe it's like an internal bottleneck, like too many options, too many things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that like
Crippled
from
with
a
opportunity.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a what is it? There are a few philosophers that talk about how boredom is sort of like a philosophical death, like you've ran out of ideas to think about or something like that, or like there's something within you that's just not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say the same thing for the poets. It's the idea that if you can't write a poem about your daily life, then you should blame yourself, not the world around you. So I think there's something akin to that, or something correlated with that too. And then like the idea of this Lord, yeah, having all those resources does give you a bigger influence, bigger ego, and it takes more to get that rush of life, maybe
Mm-hmm.
to satisfy that whole ego thing. So like if your daily life is, if you see it as boring, then there's no adrenaline high for you or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because you have that character saying this to a Zen master. And he asks him, how might I pass the time? Which is kind of like, how should I be passing the time? In reaction to feeling his days are long. And the teacher says, not twice this day. Inch time, foot gem. This day will not come again. Each minute is worth a priceless gem. And I think that in some ways, the inch time foot gem, assuming it's not just poor translation, repeated on several different forums talking about Zen koans, because I definitely checked. I think part of it too is to be a little bit confusing, to be a little bit vague, to force this Lord to ponder. And in some ways, perhaps the answer is that one way we might pass the time is to ponder, or like you were talking about the poets, to engage.
Yeah, I can see that. That adds into the bit of the that it helps with the snark, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
snark is either going to hook you in or is going to push you away. So maybe knowing, like you saw that it was a lord, and lords might be a little bit snarky themselves. So communicating on that also kind of is like the gateway into this pondering over this vague inch time foot gem sort of thing.
Right. Right.
Well, I think he's interesting too. The first line he says is, "Tell me how to pass the time."
Mm,
I think kind of the response to that is, well, no, you shouldn't be looking to pass time. You
mm,
should be looking to treat every time, every instance of time as this, precious thing.
mhm,
And that's why he says, tell me how to pass time. The monk or the master responds, not twice today. You won't be able to pass the time twice today. You only
mhm.
get to do it once. And by that time, you've kind of, ruined any other opportunity to do anything else.
So true. So true. I mean, and I almost didn't choose this cone, but the more I thought about it, I just was like, this is a really, really ripe cone. And so to each of you, and I should have prepared you for this. I'm so sorry to put you on the spot. But I wonder if you could reflect on a time that you felt bored and ask yourself, would this advice in that moment have helped you?
Um, I mean, I've definitely felt bored in school, a lot. And no, it wouldn't have helped because, no
I
piece
love the
of
truth.
information. Yeah. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I could have been enlightened with a sentence or anything. But no, I don't think that I would have heeded the message. I mean, it might have made me think about it for a minute, which would have given me some time to spend or to let my brain chew on something, but I don't know if I would have. I think that this kind of comes with experience too. Especially if I'm talking about school, I was a much younger person. I wasn't I wasn't appreciating time as much as I am now,
Mhm.
Um, when you're young, you're immortal and, you're never going to be old. So once you start getting towards the older than younger category, that's when you start to realize, oh, you know what? Time is actually very valuable. And it's something that you want to at least soak yourself in as much as possible.
I love that you said when you're in the older than younger category.
Yeah.
I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, no, I'm still in the younger category. I'm not like 50 yet. And then I also think like, well, I can't
And then you
predict
just push it
the
10
end of my
years,
life. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
Mike, any boring stories you would like to regale us with? Or boredom stories? Not boring stories.
my life's pretty boring. No.
Not twice this day, sir. Each time foot gem.
um, I'm trying to think because I guess somewhere around university or right before, maybe a little bit before, it might have helped. I don't think I would have been. I don't think I would have clicked into it the same way I clicked into the Western philosophy sort of notion of the same thing of like if you're a poet or you're a philosopher and you're bored, then there's a big issue there because your mind should always be running and fiddling with different ideas or tweaking different things. You could always be writing, always be doing a bunch of stuff.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it would be helpful for that, but definitely afterwards it would be something fun to kind of like break down and yeah, I mean, but I don't think beforehand it would help. And maybe it was just as Nick was saying, like I was younger then or less experienced or whatever. So
In the younger than older category.
oh man, I've
Yeah.
been old since I turned like 12.
I hear that, man. Well, and yeah, I was thinking about that, and I have to think back to the last time I was at the DMV, because it was a long wait, and my phone died as I was walking up, which is like, I had my earphones charged. I was gonna just listen to music or a podcast. I was just gonna wait this thing out. And then it died, and I was like super annoyed and bored. I was just bored. And I remember being so like restless and restless and just like ah. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, well, this is a great pocket of time. Like I don't have any work that can interfere. I don't have to do anything. I'm not going anywhere. I was like, this is actually a perfect time to just be mindful and be in the present. And so when I think about the inch time foot gem, I think also about like inching time, moving slowly through time, maybe stopping time and just actually leaning into the boredom, but making that actually as a call to lean into no mind, right? Because every single cone is supposed to elicit sort of like a mental state of kind of like processing, or I mean not enlightenment per se, but they're supposed to kind of like give your brain this duality that kind of creates pause and space and stuff. And so, you know, thinking back on that really kind of makes me rethink the inch time foot gem kind of philosophy.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said about the virtues of boredom. I mean, I think, you know, like it serves its purpose. It's an indication that you're dissatisfied with something, and you should listen to that. You know, like if the Lord was dissatisfied and bored with people coming to praise him all day, maybe he should have done something about it and said, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore." You know,
Enter
so I think
2020.
yeah. So I mean, I think that there is a value to boredom because it lets you know that you're deeply dissatisfied with something.
I think that's pretty well said.
And this might be a little sidetrack, but do you ever just people watch when you have nothing else to do, like if your phone's dead, there's no book?
No, because people always catch my eye, and then it's really stupid awkward because people always talk to me in public, and it's like I have to not look at anybody. Otherwise, I'm going to have a buddy. And if I'm annoyed because I'm in line at the DMV, no bueno. It's not good. Sorry to interrupt you. I had a strong reaction to that, but for me, no.
No, that's fair. It's all good. I can understand. I usually walk around with a hoodie on, and those provide nice little blinders.
Yeah.
So I just don't even have to like look left or right or have to enter in that awkward small talk when you hit eye contact. But I know like in like the DMV setting, I usually just sit way in the back, and if I have nothing to do, I just kind of start to like look around and watch people. And like, oh, what's that person doing over there?
You know, that is kind of funny though, because I have been in moments where, like thinking back on the DMV, you're right. Like between realizing that my phone was dead and between realizing I was bored, there was a moment where I was like, gosh, are there any signs I can read? Did I need to fill out a form? How many dots are on the ceiling? Nah, that's boring. Like, so there's like this scanning of the room for something to like entertain me. So yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, and people watching is interesting. I used to do that, like if I could sit on like a patio somewhere and watch people walking by. But yeah, if I'm stuck in the room with people, I'm more avoidant on that.
I kind of wonder sometimes how much we've lost in our social interactions by the fact that we never have to be bored anymore.
I know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, think about it. Like they're, you know, like it would be very likely, like if you were sitting at the DMV and nobody had a phone to be looking at, maybe people would be talking to each other. Maybe you would meet somebody that, you know, like you have a good connection with.
Oh, I know.
You know.
Or there'd be like a shared library and people would just be reading philosophy books at the DMV. That would make the DMV really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's
that's
all well and good, but not everybody has to be waxing philosophical. But I mean, I just think that it is interesting that we have the luxury of never having to be bored anymore. And I do think it is a luxury because I think a lot of relationships came out of necessity of, you know, passing time. You got to think of, you know, like even back in the day when you were in military or something like that, you had no other communications with anybody else. Sometimes you have to sit out with your platoon for hours and hours on end. The only thing you had was each other, and you'd grow really deep bonds because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, I think that, you know, like I haven't been on a bus in a while, but I remember even when I was younger, it was like headphones on, CD player playing, you know, not having to talk to anybody. And so yeah, I wonder what we miss by constantly occupying ourselves.
And I wonder, were you a back of the bus kid, middle bus, or front of the
Well,
bus?
yeah, always.
Always
Sit in the
what?
back because I like to stretch my legs out. You usually have the back seat and then those two horizontal chairs, like
Oh, right.
so you could
Stretch out
lay
a
your
bit.
feet out a little bit. Yeah.
Tall guy problems.
I
Mhm.
always sat on the back of the bus too, and it's like nowadays, it's it's not like if someone's reading a book there, you could kind of bug them a little bit, like to take a little social risk and be like, "Oh, what are you reading?" But if they're
Social risk.
scrolling, yeah, if they're scrolling through their like Facebook feed, it's kind of awkward to be like, "Oh, what'd your friend say?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You should try that though.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's on the Facebooks today?
Get away
Oh.
from me, you strange bearded brown man.
Oh gosh, I know. I think being a friendly stranger is different when you're like a smiley me versus like a curmudgeonly you.
If I haven't had any coffee, it's like, the hell is your Facebook doing?
Yeah,
What
you're
is
like,
it?
hoodie up. Well, yeah, and I think it's funny too because like you know it's just weird because this lord again, people are coming to pay homage to him and he's bored of that. So is it just like he's not engaging with them at all? Because like I feel like that would be so interesting. You're meeting all kinds of different people, dude, and like you're bored? What the hell?
Anything is boring over time, I think. I think that's kind of a sub-layer lesson in this as well,
Mhm.
is that you
Mhm.
can get bored of anything over time, no
Mhm.
matter how, fulfilling it seems to be.
Mm.
And I think too, just there's a certain disconnect that you have to have when there's a bunch of people coming and paying homage or like just praising you all the time, because you have to figure half of them have some sort of personal agenda or something.
Mm.
It's never really done, or it may feel like it's never done in earnest. So you go through that enough, you're able to disconnect and
Mhm.
start to
Mm.
build the
Mhm.
behavior patterns of boredom, where it's like, this person's just bullshitting. I'm just gonna nod my head.
Mhm. Yeah, like celebrities kind of have to deal with, or like they always say, like, oh, you don't want to be famous. It sucks, because like you're just inundated with not real, meaningful relationships. Like these are all single serving situations in some ways.
Yeah, I know. I can empathize with them. Like it sucks, and it's like I imagine it makes every single uh, interaction like not
Tedious.
fake. Yeah, tedious, because you
Mhm.
have to figure out what the intention is almost immediately, right? And you can't.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
a hard thing to do, especially if you're used to getting praise all the time, or you're used to being shit on all the time, and the opposite.
Mhm.
So I can see where it's like I can see where it can be very difficult to figure out what's meaningful and what isn't.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just love how like because we all know we've known each other for a long time, podcast listeners. So like it's just funny to hear all the discussions and know like everyone's backstories. So thank you, Mike, for bringing that point in. And I also thought too, like with homage, like what if the way people offer praise or whatnot is by giving you grapes? So every single day, you're just getting grapes, hour on the hour.
It's
You'd
gonna make
probably
a lot
get
of
sick of
wine.
grapes. Well, yeah, that's true. Yes, that's a good way to think of it. I think that would be in agreement with the Zen master. Like, if you slow down, you will realize really quickly that that's going to make some good wine. Well, I wanted to share. So, when I was looking into this, I came across a Reddit post and I just started to crack up because somebody wrote in response to this koan, they said, is inch time a thing? Or is foot gem a thing? And I thought it was really funny because again, with those four words kind of put together, there's no punctuation. Um, but if there were, and you start to play with like the punctuation possibilities, because they went from Chinese characters to now English. And now I'm thinking about it. Okay, so I studied Japanese, and I know that there's punctuation in Japanese, but like did punctuation always exist across all languages? Like, right? Because almost every language has a comma, but like, what? When did we all
But
get
they
on
all
board?
structure their sentences differently, so I don't know.
No, I know that, but I mean, like,
I guess
yeah, I don't know.
I guess it's like where you, because you would have to indicate where to take a breath, right? And it might, yeah, I would imagine there'd be some form of punctuation, even if it's just built into the word itself, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Well,
think,
I need to see these characters because yeah, but even like in Japanese, right? So you go, you do the characters up, down, from left to right, right to left. It's like reverse. It's been a minute, but like MAGA character books or whatnot, you would read them from the reverse way that we would do in America, and so it's just like shifting things. And then even like your subject is always the beginning, so you wouldn't say like a tall brown fox. You would say like
Fox that's
fox.
brown and tall.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And then but
Most
like
most languages do that actually, except for the Western languages.
and yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And I remember like when I was really studying it, like it would start to flip the way like it just was so cool because I kind of liked my brain on Japanese versus English. Like it made me think and order things differently, which was really cool. But I mentioned that because we had like exclamation marks and commas, if I remember right, like when we were doing our writing assignments. And so I'm starting to go off tangent about the origin of commas and punctuation in languages because there is like Spanish has punctuation. I know it's different, but it's like where did the comma come from? And I know you're about the breath, but
Yeah, it's just a pause in speech, but a continuation of the thought. So,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, I could see where it's like it went from oral to written language. There would have been a need to kind of convey the cadence of ideas as well, especially when the oral language is, especially with cadence being such a big part of oral language. I think you would try to capture that as much as possible because, like you're saying, inch time foot gem doesn't mean anything when it doesn't have inch time foot gem or inch time foot gem. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So, yeah, I think that there would have been a really high emphasis on trying to capture the pauses and the cadence of speech as accurately as possible.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I'm Googling, is there grammar in Chinese? And of course there is, but it
Mhm.
talks about how single characters often have to be joined together to make words, and word order is particularly important. And I wonder if these four words were joined together or if they were all individually placed. And if somehow in Chinese, like if you were to review the four characters together, combined, or things like that, if there would be some deeper meaning that came out.
Yeah, there could be an implied punctuation too,
Mhm.
within the character system, like Mike was saying. Um, so I mean, we don't know. I don't necessarily think that getting into the punctuation is
Necessary.
really all that necessary. Yeah.
No, no, I just went off a
but
tangent because I
but it
started
is it is a bit
freaking out.
technically fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 for sure.
Yeah.
Likely, I would think that there's something a bit lost in the translation, but then again, perhaps not, because the whole point of Zen koans is that they're not really supposed to make 100% sense. They're
Mm,
supposed to be they're supposed to be just cryptic enough for you to extrapolate multiple meanings, but still specific enough to have a kind of overlaying theme.
mm. Yeah, no, for sure. And it was interesting because, like, on the Reddit thread, there were a couple of interpretations. Someone said a priceless gem isn't worth a whole lot when you have a million of them. And I thought about that in terms of this cone because it's like, yeah, if he assumes he's just going to have a million days ahead of him, just like that day, then it seems like worthless. But if you treasure that one day, it becomes priceless. And
Mm.
indeed, I think you should because you cannot predict what the next like January 2020 was completely different than January 2021. Like and looking back, it's like, did we take certain things for granted?
No. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you could jump into something about artificial scarcity, but I think that pulls us on a whole different tangent. Uh,
It's true.
uh, yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, you should appreciate each little second. You can't really predict. You can try to predict, or you can lay out several cases of the future, try to mastermind it. But at the end of the day, as long as you can appreciate each little fragment of time, or even each little fragment of fantasy or reality, whatever,
Mhm.
then it does become like this priceless thing, and it adds more weight than just, oh, all these people are coming to see me. Look how great I am. This is so boring.
Mhm.
If that makes sense, or if I'm just rambling.
About like predictive algorithms and stuff like that, or maybe you didn't. It just made me
No,
think
look,
that. But
it gets there. I mean, that's sort of what I'm talking about in a computer sense, but just doing it as a human being.
yeah, well, yeah, the brain likes predictability, which is so interesting because a lot of our perception of safety is built off of routine and predictability. So, think about it like you buy a house, right? Okay, so if you have a house, you're going to have a roof over your head. You just make the payments and you're good. And there's a certain stability in that. And a lot of people work for that reason. And then what happens when you buy a house? Pretty soon it's, oh my God, it's a 30-year mortgage. Oh my God, it's the same house. Oh, it's falling apart. Oh, it's like the same thing. And so I think it's so interesting because we want to have that safety. I know the Lord wants to continue to be a Lord, but at the same time, there's this attractiveness of not being bored. Or what is it? The boredom of safety creates some sort of drama.
We're experts at finding issues with everything.
Oh, yes.
That's basically what we're really good at. So yeah, it's just kind of in our nature to lament the things that we don't have, and then when we get them, be unsatisfied with them.
So true.
It almost sounds like some love avoidance attraction thing.
Yeah,
but,
perhaps. Um,
but there's like in Fight Club, right? Like they're sitting down at the bar. Edward Norton's talking to Brad Pitt. And he's like, I bought this sofa, and I knew that that'd be the last sofa I ever need. I got this sofa problem handled.
mhm,
And Brad Pitt's like, fuck, man, now it's all gone. Now what are you gonna do?
mhm.
Gotta get
It's that
another sofa.
it's that predictability thing, right? Yeah, I gotta go to
Mhm.
IKEA and go buy the sofa and try to put it together on 3 legs or something.
Yeah.
But what I've being around unpredictable people from like an early age, I found that if you widen your range of what you mean by predictable, like even they become predictable in a sense, which
Mm.
is which adds a little bit to the security, the routine, but that range of unpredictability keeps things fresh. It's
Mhm.
it's nice.
You can always be predictably unpredictable.
You
Yes.
can.
Yes.
Totally.
I've met those people.
Oh, those people are fun.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I thought this was just a perfect cone because as this week has shown us, you never know what's going to happen next. And as last year showed us, you never know how things can shift. And so I know it's 2021. A lot of us are still quarantining. It's probably going to keep going that way. So, try to just shift perspective. If something is creating boredom, like it's the same food every day or the same routine every day, um, maybe take a minute to ponder, how precious it is and remind yourself that you can never predict what tomorrow will be. So you might as well enjoy every single minute. And I guess maybe by enjoying it, you can change it too and create more energy in the day.
But always be okay with being bored,
Oh,
because
yes.
that's also crucial. We could go. There's uh, there's a psychological test that deals with 4 different types of responses, I guess, or like your need for certain things. Like I have a crazy high need for adventure, and I have a crazy low thing for response, like helping other people or helping strangers and things like that. But that adventure like implies that I get bored really easily. And if I follow that through relationships, it implies that I get bored with people really easily and really fast. So there's a certain thing that you can appreciate from having a stable partner around you, and also appreciate that predictably unpredictable range in that partner because it keeps things fresh. But you
Mhm.
also like appreciate the boredom and the non-boredom. And if it feels like it's getting too much, just tweak it a little bit. Like if it's a certain food that you eat all the time, add a different spice in it or something.
Mhm.
Just add a little bit of adventure, and it makes things interesting.
Yeah, just a little bit of foot gem.
Yeah.
Foot gem spices. Nick,
Oh,
did you want to add anything to our waxing on boredom and overcoming said boredom?
No, I think I'm gonna let the last word be foot jam spices.
but
Good with
gem
that.
spiced wine.
I am
There you
good with
go.
that.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2021. We love you. And, if you're listening to this and it's amazing, please do subscribe. It means a lot to us. We don't check the numbers all the time, but when we do and there's an extra number, it's really sweet. So, thanks for listening. And Nick, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the next show or anything like that, or
No, I don't.
we're good.
I don't want to talk about the next show.
All right. Foot gem spices,
No.
everybody.
Real spicy.
Yeah. No, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your listening. We hope that you guys have a wonderful Friday evening. And thank you, Ayla. Thank you, Mike. And we'll catch you on Monday night, everybody. Until next time, stay out there, and we'll see you on the next ExoFathom. Good night.
Peace.
Lates.